Hello, welcome to the first ever podcast for Run the World. Run the World is a group of guys who, with a common love for sneakers and making the world a better place. And so we wanted to do a podcast that represents that, and a podcast that talks about sneakers a little differently, asks a little deeper questions, and we're going to have fun in the meantime. So let's get this started. My name is Josh. I live in Vancouver, BC, Canada, on the West Coast. My go-to sneaker brand is Asics, but I try to collect as many as possible. The last pair of sneakers I wore was the Dior, made in Italy. This all full circle here eventually. The Giallo. How do you say that?
Giallo.
Does anyone know how you say that?
Giallo.
Giallo. Extra butter and Diodora collab. That's the last pair I wore. So I'll pass it over to you, Dave.
All right. So I'm David Blackmon. Run the world. So we've had some interesting conversations. So I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to sort of do this like live and actually record some of it. And actually talk to people that are real enthusiasts. I am a big sort of runner fan, so I like New Balance, Saucony, Asics, but I do have some love for Jordan. The last shoe that I wore was the New Balance 993. I wore it to drop my daughter off to school this morning. It's my go-to. Francesco, do you want to jump on?
Hello, I am Francesco from Italy. I currently live in Venice. In 2020, I moved from Milan to Rome and then to Venice. And I'm really glad to be part of Run the World. I'm the only Italian to be in that. And today I'm the only one, not mother tongue, so I'm the only foreign guest to this conversation, and I'm really glad to have part of it. And the latest sneaker I wore was the Mita GL3 Rico today morning. And I'm not one brand only collector. I like Nike, New Balance above all in the last years, and Asics. And I was an Adidas guy too, but not too much in the last years, to be honest, just retros from Adidas. So at the moment, my love with Adidas fell down. And I passed the ball to Rico.
Hey, I'm Rico Machado-Torres. I have been a part of Run the World for, I think, the last year and a half, 2 years. I am a frequent guest on the Sneak This Sneaker podcast. I live in Mesa, Arizona, which is, I guess, kind of close to Phoenix. The last pair I wore was, I'm currently wearing a pair of Spiridon 2, just GR colorway. The Spiridon 2 is so comfortable, and I love it so much. My sneaker brand of choice, I would like to say it's New Balance or Asics, but I probably own more Nikes than anything else. So yeah, here we are.
Oh, and I'm in New Haven, Connecticut. I forgot to mention where I'm from. I'm like the middle of the time zones right here. So just want to say that. And so I know we had an interesting conversation via chat about the Air Jordan Dior 1 collaboration over the summer that had so many different perspectives on the shoe, and this is sort of what was part of the catalyst for us wanting to record and have a real face-to-face conversation about it, because there were just some very unique perspectives. Francesco being in Italy, and sort of working for a high-end brand, and then myself being like an older person that sort of has different memories of the Jordan 1. Josh not really being connected to the Jordan brand or Jordan world. And then Rico, obviously, who, you know, is also has a West Coast sort of view of the shoe, and you know, also just a different interpretation altogether from mine, which made for like a really good and really interesting conversation. So we wanted to dive into that. So just to give a little background, Dior and Air Jordan did a collaboration over the summer. Well, it released over the summer. I believe it was delayed. It was supposed to release, I think, in April, and ended up getting pushed till June. But they did 85 high top Air Jordan 1 highs and 4,700 low top pairs, and they retailed for about $2,000. And this is the first time that they had ever collaborated and put out an official shoe. They did a capsule, obviously, with clothing and accessories and everything as well. But we wanted to talk about, like, just, you know, where does this stand? I know there's been like a lot of discussion. Some people have said it's like the sneaker of the year. It's like the, you know, the best release of the year. And and like me personally, I don't feel that way. So like, just wanted to give some background and get different perspectives on it. Rico, do you want to jump in and talk about, you know, how you felt and what your thoughts are on this?
Sure. I think the Dior Jordan 1, I think just as a shoe itself, I think it's gorgeous. I think it's stunning. I think even though, like, yes, it's a gray and white sneaker, that gray is super unique, and it's one that I haven't really seen before used on a Jordan 1.
I think it represents Dior. It's a color that was used a lot in Dior, maybe with their bags and their clothing. So it's that's what I understand.
Right. But like, as far as like the streetwear side of it, like them kind of bringing their own flavor to that, even though, like, yeah, they make like kind of a Chuck Taylor type shoe that's like $1,100 or something. Like, you know, guys like us that, you know, are just out here buying runners and just buying whatever basic retail stuff, for the luxury brand to look at a Jordan 1 and be like, hey, let's do something like that. I think is really fashion forward. I think it's really interesting, and I mean, I was in support of it. I don't think it's sneaker of the year. I think it's maybe the best Jordan 1 that came out in 2020. I think the Mocha is probably a little better, but I think it's a great shoe. I don't really have an issue with it.
Yeah, I think that the uniqueness of the color, of course, because you know, that is the particular gray signature by Dior, and I think that they were able to keep together the Dior signature, so the gray, the D signature on the swoosh, the made in Italy savoir-faire, that is something totally different from the usual materials used for Air Jordans, and all the Air Jordan and the Air Jordan silhouette, of course. So I think they perfectly mixed the two worlds, so the Dior world and the Air Jordan 1. And I think it was the perfect collaboration, because they were able to perfectly mix both, keeping the signature of both. And I know that the price is, of course, really high, but it was a limited sneaker produced by a luxury brand in collaboration with a sportswear brand. So I know that maybe street culture fans didn't appreciate it, but I think that the sneaker is really, really, really good, in my opinion. And for me, is the sneaker of the year.
So obviously you guys know that I wasn't a I wasn't a big fan of the release. I I love the sneaker though. I do. I think that gray is gorgeous. And so was the swoosh. The swoosh with the stitch D's. Um, the detailing on it was amazing. My problem comes more with um, just understanding like the motivation and basically the intention of the collaboration, which for me has always been about bringing together brands so that you know one brand can basically be elevated or influenced um, in a way that sort of brings in new fans or shows some sort of appreciation. So like if you think about some of the Jordan 1 collaborations that we saw last year, where they brought in like individual artists, like the Blue the Great, when he did the Air Jordan 1 mid, it wasn't about necessarily making something that was unattainable. It was about elevating him because he needed a bigger platform and giving him some credential or some voice that he didn't have before. And so when I think about the Dior Jordan 1, like I really like the shoe, but at the same time, who does it benefit, right? Is it, Nike doesn't need it. Nike doesn't need the money. Nike doesn't need the platform. Nike's probably the biggest sneaker brand on the planet, like without exception. Jordan is number 2, and they're owned by Nike. So for me, Dior, it seems like Dior is trying to sneak in and sort of like capture some of the Jordan brand faithful or whatever. And I mean, I guess I understand that, but I personally have never understood the like appeal of the luxury with streetwear. I mean, I guess people that like nice things, like, okay, but at the same time, I don't own anything Dior. I'm not going to go buy anything Dior. Well, that's a lie. I bought my wife a Dior bracelet for Christmas, but she asked for it, so it's very different. But like Dior isn't like, I'm not going to go buy a t-shirt from Dior, right? Like for me, that's me personally. And so
Well, they also retail at around like $1,000.
yeah, exactly.
You could pay $2,000 for just a t-shirt or a button-up shirt.
Yeah. And so for me, like, when we saw like Virgil collaborate with Nike, the prices were normal Jordan brand prices. Whenever we've seen like a collaboration, for the most part, it's been at the traditional Nike price. And so I understand like the high quality leather, the handmade, made in Italy. I just think that if there was going to be some sort of appeal to the traditional Jordan brands, consumer, they could have done something that was a little bit more reasonable. And so that really drives me nuts though. Like, so, you make a $2,000 shoe and like immediately, and you limit it to 2,000 to 8,500 pairs, you're not going to get a pair. Right. So, I don't know. We've seen quality Jordans though. We've seen high quality Jordans before. And, for me, I think that's not an excuse. Like that's not a reasonable excuse. Because Jordan did the Pinnacle line, right? And we used to get, $350, high quality, high leather, Jordans in the past. So for me, it's very, I don't know. It's not a reasonable excuse.
I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit. You said that it's not really for. I think that the point is it's not really for the Jordan fan base. It almost seems like it's a sneaker. It's almost like Balenciaga. they retail like $800 or something, and it doesn't almost matter what they look like. Like, in my opinion, they're pretty nasty looking shoes. But I think it's for a different world. Like, it's for a different person who wants to wear that so that they can have an $800 shoe on their foot. The $2,000 Air Dior, it's not a nice looking gray Jordan. It is a nice looking gray Jordan, but it represents more than that. They could make probably a made in Italy Air Jordan that would retail $250. I think the Giallo are like $200 and they're made in Italy. I've bought lots of made in Germany, made in Italy, made in Spain, and I'm paying $200 to $300, which is higher than normal, but it's nothing close to that $2,000. And I understand there's this exceptional extra markup when it comes to something like Dior. You look at their catalog online, just their clothing. There's retail prices are quite a bit higher, and it's partly because of how they're made. There is like a beauty and craftsmanship that goes into that. You think about like a Rolex watch. They're using the best materials. They're using so much, time and labor and research and craftsmanship that goes into these products. Any kind of high-end watch or high-end shoe, there is that element of this should cost more than normal. And then at another level, you're paying to wear a Rolex, you're paying to wear a Patek Philippe, you're paying to wear Dior. The materials only cost so much. How much could you possibly pay for some made in Italy leather? It's not $2,000, but you're paying for that Dior as well.
Yeah, that's what I think the major disconnect is, that, people like us are complaining like, hey, this shoe is $2,000. Like, it's not in our price range or in any like sneakerheads like real price range, like probably for some but not for all. I think people, and I mean, I don't really like using the term sneakerheads, but like sneaker people like really have this heightened sense of, I'm the most important person buying sneakers. Like, I don't get a shoe from Kith, I'm gonna at Kith, I'm gonna at Ronnie, where's my pair at? Like, shout out to Nike, like, for this pair or that pair, or, why can't we get anything? It's like, I don't think that everything that moves sneaker culture forward, I mean, if it has a culture, but like, the sneaker world forward has to really be for us. Like, and it's for the Dior fans. It's for, I guess, certain Jordan fans who like can afford that type of thing. But I don't think, like, as far as Jordan 1s for us, like, to represent Jordan Brand, there have been, 80 some odd Jordan 1 colorways that have come out in the last 3-4 years. So, I mean, that's just what I think. Like, I don't think that we should really be up in arms like this luxury brand is collabing with one of the most iconic sneakers ever. They want to retail at $2,000. I mean, that's their prerogative. Like, that's their thing, And so I don't really have an issue with that. And, as far as from the Dior side of things, they're trying to bring in more customers. They're trying to do what a good business does, is kind of see like, hey, this is where the paradigm shift is now. Everyone loves Jordan 1s. Let's reach out to Jordan, or maybe it was the other way around, like, Jordan reaching out to Dior. But, just them having that combined interest to bring more customers to their brand, I think is really what it's about. And this particular shoe, this particular release was not about us, kind of the regular guy who goes out and works 40 hours a week to buy a pair of shoes.
I think it's a brand image operation. I think it isn't a product operation. It's a marketing operation. As the greatest part of luxury brand and fashion operations or fashion moves, because fashion seems to try to give to people what they want. That's the main move by fashion and by luxury brands, trying to give people what they want. And what do people want these days? They want sneakers, they want street culture or something like that. And so brand like Dior, like Louis Vuitton, like all luxury brands like Prada, they're trying to give people what they want, jumping into cultures different from theirs, but it's always like that. It's always like fashion brands trying to give people what's in vogue in that precise period, I think. And that is the main thing. So people want Dior, people want Jordan, so Jordan for Dior, because it is Jordan brand for Dior, not Dior for Jordan. That's the main. I think that's the main characteristic of the collaboration. It's just like Stussy for Dior, for example. Sean Stussy is collaborating with Dior, and Kim Jones collaborated with Nike before. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. They collaborated for Nike LWP, and but that was Kim Jones for Nike, and Kim Jones is the artistic director of Dior, so that's why he was already linked to Nike, and he's trying to make Dior jump into millennials and Generation Z, requests. I think that's all, and I'm just judging and evaluating the shoes as they are, and not the price point. For me, the price point isn't a thing. That's all. I haven't got, unfortunately, Dior Air Jordan, of course, Air Dior, because I can't afford them, and of course there was an enormous hype, and I don't think that I would have won any raffles for them, by the way. But in case I hadn't $2,000 to spend for a pair of sneakers, but it's a wonderful pair of sneakers. That's all in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that idea of like bringing in like a different culture and like courting a different culture, and understand, I guess, that being sort of the catalyst for why Dior and Jordan are sort of working together. So I guess, for me, I can accept that. The weird thing, I guess, is, what is Jordan getting, and what is Jordan doing other than, sort of, and like, I take your point, Rico, that everything is not about us, because obviously it's not, but I don't like being alienated, right? Especially when it's something that I feel passionately about, and something that, sort of, me as an individual within a culture has created and helped elevate, right? So like the Jordan 1 isn't cool without us. So when you take something like a Jordan 1 and then you give it to a luxury brand, and then you let a luxury brand recreate it and price out the people that made it cool, I don't think that's cool. And so like my question is, what did Jordan get in return, and what did Jordan give to us in return? Because I always feel like there's got to be like a give and take, right? So like, okay, Dior, you want to dip your foot into this streetwear, you want to attract millennials, you want to like, get in cool with the sneaker aficionados. Cool, that's great, but you can't do it strictly on your terms. You have to sort of, woo us in a little bit with something that's reasonable, right? And honestly, I don't know this, but like the Dior Jordan 1 could have been, estimated to be $4,000 initially, and they were like, hey, we got to cut it down so people can afford it, right? And so like that could be a reality that I just don't know, that we just don't know. But but in my perspective, I'm seeing, okay, yeah, like Jordan tried to make quality materials and quality products before, and they priced it at like $350, $400. And they could have said to Dior, like, hey, okay, well, we want to make sure that we can still be accessible to some people below, you know, this dollar amount that you're suggesting. Why don't we do 500, or why don't we do 400? I mean, they have shoes that go for $300 and $400 now, and I don't necessarily feel priced out, but it's not like really high on my list, even though I really like the shoes. Like all of their adapt stuff is really like is sort of expensive now, and I'm fine with that. Like new tech, all that stuff, and I understand that it's like pricing me out a little bit now, but in the future it's going to be accessible. But Air Jordan Dior 1 sort of feels really out of the price range, right? It's like it's not even a consideration. It's just like now I'm just doing this thing that's bringing in more people to take product that I want, right? Because that's the result. Because Air Jordan 1, we can all admit, is really, really hot right now. Everybody wants a Jordan 1. Like, you can't get a GR Jordan 1 unless it's a mid, like, unless you're on StockX. That's the reality. And the Dior 1 didn't help that, right? It just escalated it. So I ask, like, what are you doing for us? Like, are you, and it's not like they put, maybe they did, but it doesn't feel like they're putting out more products. It doesn't feel like we're getting something more, right? And so, like, when they did the Travis one, we got the Mocha after. And so it was kind of like, okay, like, it's not really a Travis, but I could get that feeling, right? And the price point initially wasn't too crazy. So I always want to know, like, what's the give and take? Like, you're going to get this name, you're going to escalate your brand, elevate your brand. That's cool. What are we getting to? What are you doing for the people that really collect? Because, $2,000, that's like my sneaker budget for the year. Like, you know what I mean? And that's if I could get them, right? So, like, what are you doing? Like, Dior is coming in and saying, hey, we want to get some of that Jordan magic, and Kim Jones is all about, like, Jordans, and that's cool, but, like, what is Dior giving to the Jordan fans, to the people that aren't, like, to the people that were buying them when they were on sale? You know what I mean? Like what are they getting? Because we've been complaining about quality on Jordans for forever, and now you give us this amazing quality one and we can't afford it. So it's like I just want a little give and take, and I guess that was my sort of expectation. But I love the shoe, like, and that's the problem, right? Is I really, really love the shoe, and I feel like there wasn't an accessibility point. There wasn't a point where it was like, oh, this is something that I can think about.
You make a great point. I think if it was another shoe, or if they maybe made a new shoe, or even if they like revamped it a little bit, it would have appealed differently. But because they're picking the Jordan 1, which is like the sneaker, it's the sneaker that is probably, arguably, but most likely the reason any of us collect sneakers. It's sort of like boomed this culture of basketball shoes to streetwear and all this. Like, it's kind of the shoe. So it almost does feel like a bit of a slap to the fans or the collectors. It's creating this luxury thing that isn't accessible. It's not for us. And like Rico said, it's marketing. Most of what Nike does and Jordan Brand seems to be, they're just marketing the next thing. It doesn't matter who buys it, because it'll sell out. And then if it gets hyped, all the more. If it gets attention, all the more. Maybe even negative attention, and it just fuels this machine of the next release is even bigger, the next release is even bigger. They can release 100,000 pairs and sell out in a minute. And it's, pretty hard to get for the normal guy.